Hey, good morning, everyone. Hi, everyone out there in Facebook. I'm Andrea Tarr. I'm the program director from SCAN. And thanks for joining us this morning for SCAN FYI.
Good morning, Andrea. I'm Marybeth Popnewski. I'm the program coordinator here at SCAN. We're happy to have with us Andrew Farrelly. I'm gonna say this verbatim because it's Digital Inclusion Practitioners of New Jersey, otherwise known as DIPNJ. Very cute acronym. So, Andrew, welcome to SCAN FYI.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and DIPNJ, because we have a lot to talk about on this topic about digital
And I'm thinking a lot of people are not familiar with the organization, and they should be.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yes, my name is Andrew Farrelly. I am a co-founding member of an organization called DIPNJ, which, like Marybeth said, stands for Digital Inclusion Practitioners of New Jersey. We are a group of professionals across the nonprofit sphere and generally sort of public benefit sphere that are interested in this thing called digital inclusion, which we'll get into more later on. But in short, it's essentially ensuring that everyone has access to the benefits that internet and all things digital provides.
So how long has DIPNJ been around?
We actually officially, our first meeting was a year ago, I think Thursday. Okay. But we have a few core members have been doing this digital inclusion work in a sort of ad hoc way for several years now. It was all born out of an event that the Jersey City Housing Authority put on in summer of 2019, where they had congregated all these different people across mostly northern New Jersey who were doing this sort of work, whether it be librarians or other housing authorities, nonprofits. My full-time job is at a nonprofit in Jersey City. And essentially there was a critical mass of individuals who were doing this work individually, but we found that we were doing a lot of repetitive work, doing the same work that other people were doing. So we wanted to create some sort of organization where we could share resources and talk about pitfalls and things that we had succeeded at.
Well, since the world changed in March of this year, I think it's fair to say, everyone kind of ran smack into this whole idea about digital inclusion or the digital divide. And maybe you could first of all explain when we talk, because our topic, we really want to talk about digital inclusion for seniors, but let's even just first explain to everyone, what do we mean by the digital inclusion? And then what's the digital divide?
Sure. So for the first question, there's two ways to think about it. There's the very strict official definition, which is sort of a 5-pillar thing. It's one, access to the internet in an affordable and sufficiently powerful way. It's two, access to digital devices, whether that be a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone or something else that again is sufficiently powerful for the user's needs and also affordable. 3, it's the digital literacy, meaning the ability to use both that device and also be able to navigate the internet, be able to do whatever the user wants. And again, all these things, they have ranges of what they mean depending on the user. But then there's also 2 extra things. One is access to quality technical support, because things break or things happen and you shouldn't be expected to know how everything works, right?
That's right.
And the final thing is the design of different applications or the devices themselves to make sure that they themselves are inclusive. So if someone has a visual impairment, for instance, the ability to either make the screen contrast in a way so it's easier for people to read, or to make text larger, but also things like content that is specific for children or for seniors or for whomever. And so that's the sort of official definition.
So that was that's digital
Right.
inclusion.
Yes, of digital inclusion. Practically speaking, digital inclusion is basically everything, right? It's not, we're living in a world where so many things are digital, right? From buying a bus pass to signing up for healthcare to
Grocery shopping.
grocery shopping, healthcare, right? Or rather, receiving healthcare, so telemedicine.
Right.
All these things are inherently related to digital inclusion because the entire real world has shifted online, both before the pandemic and during it. And so the last bit is the digital divide, and that's just the gulf between those who have reached some semblance of digital inclusion, where they have a device that's good enough for them, they have the internet connection that's fast enough for them, and they know at least most of what they need to know from the perspective of from their own perspective. Meaning there's no major component that's hamstringing their ability to use the internet. So it's the gulf between that and those people who just aren't quite there. And so again, that could be a huge range depending on, it can be very small or it could be very big depending on any individual situation.
Now, it does seem that seniors are disproportionately affected by the divide. And obviously at SCAN, we went 100% virtual, and we still are, and who knows how long this will last. So we've seen firsthand, right, Marybeth, people who were not able to participate with us. And so how do you find that it really affects seniors in the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, or a main thing is, many people have lived their entire lives not needing to use a digital device.
True.
And on one hand, you have people who are excited by that, and they want to, or excited by all things digital, and they just want to learn. There are some people who are sort of don't feel like they need to do it until something happens and they realize that they do, or they would, and
Yeah.
which is the case, I think, of a lot of people in the senior community from during the COVID pandemic, where there was a sense of isolation that was premised on safety, but video conferencing with friends and family was something that turned into sort of a lifeline for a lot of people. And then the final group of people are just scared or don't quite want to, for whatever reason, don't quite want to delve into the digital world. And, that's fine. If the issue stems from, if someone does want to delve into the digital world, but there's fear there, what can we do to ameliorate that fear and get them up to where they'd like to be?
Fear and the financial end of it too, like you said, the internet
Affordability.
costs money, the devices cost money. Before we came on air, Andrew and I were saying that, it almost seems like internet access should be a utility that almost everyone should have access to now at this point.
Right.
Yeah, so that's actually a debate that is happening at a national level. And as a small organization, to some degree, we can't affect that, but we can change the culture and we can spread the word that the internet is not a luxury, in the same way that like a refrigerator isn't really a luxury, right? It's a piece of technology, sure. And maybe at some point people didn't need it, but we've gotten to a point where it's so integral to functioning in a modern society where it is just a need, and treating it as a utility therefore seems like the smart thing to do.
I mean, there was a time when electricity was a luxury. Let's be serious.
Exactly. Yeah.
And of course we would never think of living intentionally without electricity. And I think that's a good point with the internet. Yeah, there was a time when that was a luxury too. But now it almost feels like your life is so tied together that how can you not have it? And yet, well, so many people don't have it. And we really, we noticed it so much when we've been doing a program at SCAN called Successful Aging and Technology. You may have heard about that, where for low income people, we were able to give them a free Android tablet. And you know what? It changed their world. It absolutely changed their world. But one of the issues was where we were, there was always Wi-Fi. But then for some of them, some of the folks who had the tablet, once they went home, they didn't have internet access. And that this just can't be anymore. We make every effort to get kids internet so they can do their schoolwork, but we don't make that same effort for seniors on a national level. So what do you feel like this is changing though, Andrew? Are we getting there?
I do feel as though it's changing. I think the pandemic has
Shine the light on it.
Absolutely.
it's like being hit by a bus. It's
Big light,
you know
big light.
Big
it
spotlight.
was I think a surprise for a lot of people, the state of most people's or many people's internet connection, and the affordability aspect of it also came to light given the beginning of a national recession. And so when it's a question about the things you biologically need, like shelter, i.e. paying rent, or putting food on the table, and then you have something like the internet, oftentimes that's prohibitively expensive. Oftentimes that's one of the first things to go, because it is, even though people believe it to be necessary, it's still in that gray area of luxury in a lot of people's minds, I think. So, but at the same time, everyone was staying at home, working from home, or otherwise mostly staying by themselves, siloed in some way. And you had that tension there between giving up the internet or not having it, and realizing how necessary it was to just function today. And so I think there was a national wake-up call that was happening. And we saw this push, as Andrea, you mentioned, for children, school children. But in some ways it was, the things that were rolled out were good and they were absolutely necessary, but I don't know that they are sufficient. There were still a lot of it's infrastructure problems, and just the infrastructure didn't exist. So when we were trying to roll it out, I say we in a grand sense, quickly, there were still a lot of service gaps. So we were seeing kids who technically had a hotspot, which is a mobile connection to the internet, and they had the device, but just the reception that they were getting wasn't sufficient. So they were still effectively not connected.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're absolutely right, Andrea, about it not just being about kids. It's obviously that's a huge component of it, but it is the senior community, it is, and everyone in between, because again, the internet is so essential to just functioning in 2020.
And probably even a lot of senior citizens, and I'll include myself in that too, didn't even have a good understanding. You wanted to go grocery shopping online, Instacart. I mean, it's online. Pay your bills, go to the bank. All of this is doable online, but you need the device, you need the hook, you need to pay for it. And I feel like for a lot of seniors, we are sort of left behind in this. And I'm not sure what so people watching, if they want to do something, what kind of action can we take to improve the situation?
There's several things. One would be to talk about digital inclusion sort of freely, and talk about these issues that you're having. And make it known to your state legislators, but also to basically anyone with whom you come in contact, whether that be a doctor, whether that be family members, friends, because ultimately without a culture of digital inclusion, one in which the internet is seen as necessary,
Utility.
not as a utility, right? Not much, there won't be the same sort of urgency, I think, that the subject really deserves. And so I think that's a core component. Another thing is to just give it a try. I mean, I think the fear is a huge component of why people don't try different things, say online banking, as you mentioned.
Right.
There's something, going from something very tactile to something that's on the screen can be very scary, but you can still do it through the bank that you've always used. And, you know, you give it a try, you can go into your bank and ask someone to help you out with it. Just any little bit, anything that you're already doing and you know that can exist digitally, to just give that a try. When my partner who helped me start this organization has a story about how he was teaching a digital skills class, and he found that something that really interested a lot of seniors in his class was the ability to download audiobooks, particularly the Bible. And so a lot of his students were very excited when they could have someone just read the Bible to them, or read a mystery novel to them, or whatever. And a lot of these things exist free online,
Yep.
either through YouTube or through an app on a phone or tablet.
Yeah, it opens up a whole new world, right?
Yeah.
It does. It does. But you have to also be open yourself to, you know, accept this whole new world. And for a lot of people, change is very difficult. And especially with some of our older seniors, change is tough, but so worth it, right, Mary Beth? So worth it.
Yeah, I mean, especially like we saw firsthand some of our instructors, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm not going to go to an online format, and they made it work, and they had a big smile on their face when they accomplished it. So
Yeah.
it's great to see it happen. It's interesting to watch the journey, and it's great to see the end result.
I think watching that first little win turn into a slightly bigger one and over again, and you watch someone build confidence is extremely rewarding as someone who does this work.
Yes.
But also, like, I watched family members do this too. Both my mom and grandmother became increasingly tech oriented over the last year or so, largely because of the pandemic. And it is that little hurdle that once you get past a line, the next thing gets a little bit easier and easier and easier, and before you know it, you're a wizard.
Oh, waiting to be a wizard. Yes. We're Mary Beth and I are wizards in the making. We didn't set out to be, but you know, I guess we have to embrace it, right? We all do.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts to share with our audience, Andrew? How can people, I will make sure, I'll tell our audience, I will make sure that I put all the info, your website address in the links in Facebook. So if people want to reach out and know more about your organization, because is this the kind of a situation where people can join to be part of the bigger picture?
Yep. So
Okay.
we are the name Digital Inclusion Practitioners of New Jersey. What we've defined as a digital inclusion practitioner is anyone who is working to make to reach a state of digital equity. So you could be doing that in a professional sense. You could be doing that as a hobby, or it could just be an interest. And we run, it's usually monthly events online on the subject, from policy to some practical teaching to any sort of number of things. So we're always looking for more people to join and share their experience, both as someone who's doing the work and as someone who has gone through programming or is just interested in the subject. But beyond that, just talking about the concept of digital inclusion to anyone and everyone, because it is that important.
It is that important. It absolutely is. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being our guest today. I hope that our listeners learned a few things and will ultimately participate in doing their part for digital inclusion.
Thanks for having me.
All right, remember, if it's important to you, it's important to us. I'm Andrea Tarr, and we'll see you next time on Scan FYI. Bye, Marybeth.
Have a good day, everyone.